So we're up here in the field making video, and the bison herd here happens to be right next to the road, so we're just going to take a moment or two to talk about them. These here up front, those are calves from last year. Those would have been born about June. The mothers are the little taller ones mixed in. But the more interesting reason is why I got bison. And so these bison are actually currently standing in a seed production patch of wild quinine and lead plant. And bison are very selective in what to eat. They prefer mostly grasses. And when the C4 grasses are available, they've got a strong preference for those over the C3 cool season grasses. Keep in mind, this would have been the big grazer out on the native prairies, so they're very adapted to the native forages. What I'm using them for is they hardly consume any forbs at all. There's a handful of forbs I've learned that they eat, but for the most part, I can graze my grasses out. A lot of times the grasses are my weed in the seed production patches. I can graze those grasses out without having to use herbicide to kill those grasses. I just graze them, suppress them from seed production, harvest my seed, and I think I'm building a healthier system by doing that than using herbicide to achieve the same thing. Also, if you got a problem, if you can take a problem and turn it into an income stream, that's always a good way to go. They also add some fertility to the ground, as you can tell, as they do their roguing projects. What we believe happens some is the bison graze the weed or out of the crop, and weed's just anything we don't want there. It might be native, it might be non-native, but if it's not the species we're trying to harvest, as they graze that, the manure and urine, of course, adds fertilizer, but also below the ground, when you bite a plant off, it starts to release out of its roots sugars, energy. The roots actually somewhat die back, and other plants are picking that right up and using that as well. You know, different plants respond differently. They used to teach that whatever you do above ground, like if you take half the plant off above ground, half of the root system dies below ground. That seems to be true with some plants, but not all. Some plants actually, the roots don't change much. So there's no general rule. But they all respond differently to grazing. You can really see that bull there focusing on just the grass. Now he's focusing on the camera really hard. Remember, buddy, don't look it in the eye, pretend like it's not there. They walk and graze a lot. They're always on the move grazing. I don't have to worry about as much my water sources as I do with cattle, because cattle don't like to graze like over a quarter mile from their water source. Here in Missouri, out west, of course, they graze a lot further. But bison don't have that problem. They'll graze miles from their water source daily. We're up in the first part of May here, and you can tell on the rumps there, starting to look a little shaggy. The shaggy hair coming off from their winter coat and heading for spring. They should be slicked off here in another month or so all the way.